Yes. So there's this process called an alternative material variance. This is often what people need to use. Basically, it's like you need to prove this material works as good or better than the things that are accepted. It's not that actually big of a threshold to meet, but it usually causes a delay. I've heard, on average about.
Let's talk about the power of hemp. From the farm field to finished goods. Learn all about it at the 2022 Midwest iHemp Expo, May 20th through 21st at the Lansing Center. Visit MidwestIHempExpo.com. See you there. We are live now. All right.
Cool.
Our software keeps changing how things go. Oh, okay. We do have someone that said, we see you. Okay. But yeah. I didn't believe it because I looked at the web page and it didn't look like we were live yet. But hey, before we dive into all our hempcrete discussion, Jacob, give us an update on Sergey and how he's doing over in the Ukraine, would you?
Yeah. So, of course, everyone knows there's war right now in Ukraine. Us as a board have some heavy connections over there. Of course, Sergey's on our board of directors, as well as Ilona Thompson, another one of our board of directors, is a Ukrainian citizen, and her family is actually in eastern Ukraine, in an area where people can't even get to anymore. And then we also had one of our directors, Henry Gage Jr., who had his daughter is an artist, and she was over in Ukraine when all this started. And she's back in the States, so she's safe. But Sergey, so Sergey was in Kiev. He got his family to the western part of the country, and they have successfully crossed the border into Romania. Sergey himself is still in Ukraine. The last I communicated with him was yesterday, so he's still moving, trying to help people get from the east to the west, and make it through this event. I do apologize, my Roomba feels like talking right now.
That's wondering what that was.
That's what happens when you're going live, man.
Yeah. So the latest update is, he's still over there. He's doing his best he can for the war effort. And if there's any assistance, we've been directing him to his brother, Max Kolenkov, who lives in Canada, but I think is currently in South America. And he's helping to, if anyone wants to send donations or anything directly to Sergey, he's helping to manage that.
Yeah, and here's, let me just share, this is Sergey.
Hello everyone, my name is Sergey Kolenkov and I'm one of the founding members of US Hemp Building Association and currently holding the position of Director of Education.
Yep, so Sergey's got a lot of videos. You can find them on Hempire UA. So, just shout out to Sergey and the challenges they're dealing with there, because they've been doing hempcrete for a little while, building houses. How are they so far ahead of us, Jacob?
I mean, a lot of that has to do with legalization. They were able to grow it before we could, so they were able to develop a lot faster. And I mean, part of it too is really when we talk about what we call, hemp lime or hempcrete, it really kind of originates in France in the 80s. So you can say the origin point of what is like today's modern hempcrete started there. So it kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. We'll have unfortunately, they will have some rebuilding to do over there. Maybe a lot of hempcrete will get made for the rebuilding process. So, yeah.
It's very true. There have been some discussions about that, but right now it's just getting through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So you've been traveling quite a bit. Why don't you update us on where you've been traveling and where you've been talking to everybody about this at?
Yeah, sure. I guess I went to North Carolina for the Industrial Hemp Summit. The end of last year, I was in North Dakota for the Northern Hemp Summit, and that was North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Montana representatives. I was at World Ag Expo in January. That was California. It was kind of like a more international thing. And, next week is NOCO. We'll be there. Actually, the entire board will actually be there for a little bit. I'm not sure if everyone's going to go to NOCO, but we're doing like a closed doors planning meeting on Friday from like 10 to 2. So that's when we'll, crystallize some of these plans that we've been putting together over the last month and a half with the different directors. And then of course, your event in May will be there. There's an event in Florida in April, the 850 Industrial Hemp Summit, which is in Tallahassee. Be there. I don't know. Honestly, we have an events and marketing. That's Alona's job, and I kind of go where she tells me to go. At this point.
Here's your ticket, and then be here then.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe you can update a little bit us on one of the things. I mean, we're all seeing what good the building material is going to be with this product, but where do we sit as far as with codes and moving through all that process to be able to use the product?
All right. So yeah, this is actually something I didn't mention my itinerary. In 2 weeks, a group of us will be in Rochester, New York. That is when there is the committee action hearing for the IRC, or the residential code submission we made in January. So that will be our opportunity to defend it. At the end of that meeting, it'll end with one of 3 results: either approval with modifications, or disapprove. We're right now we're hoping for approval with modifications. That's because we've seen a typo that we need to fix, and there was another little error. So we're going to be making 2 slight modifications to correct the document. But if we get through that, then there's a public comment hearing period. The submission for public comments, or maybe offering up any changes, is June 20th. I keep getting that mixed up. June 20th. And then if there are public comments, we will need to vote and discuss those in September in, I believe it's St. Louis. And then the official approval will come in October. But if we can get through the approval process in 2 weeks, we have a very, very good chance of getting this all the way through. And that'll be a big step forward.
So this is nationwide codes then, really, not just state by state?
Yeah, so the codes in the United States are very complicated. They're very splintered. States have, and even counties have, specific rules that they approve. There's a delay often in acceptance. So really, when we talk about the big picture, what we're looking at is if we can get past this, we then will probably need to go almost like a state by state discussion or push to be like, this has been accepted for the IRCs that will be released in 2024, because that's the actual release date. How can we move this in and use this now? There's delays, like I said, so there's counties I know in Tennessee who just started using the 2018 IRC. So, that's a 3-year delay. So we could be talking about 2027 unless we push that forward. IBC, which is our next goal, which is the commercial codes, I heard architects talking about how they're still using the 2020 or 2012 codes.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of that has to do with new rules on energy that states don't necessarily want to be required to enforce. So, we'll have to see if we can get people to agree to it. But this is a big first step.
Now, people are building with hempcrete in the U.S. now. They're just working it out with their local building inspector?
Yes. So there's this process called an alternative material variance. This is often what people need to use. Basically, it's like you need to prove this material works as good or better than the things that are accepted. It's not that actually big of a threshold to meet, but it usually causes a delay. I've heard, on average about 3 months. So it's just a difficult extra step to your already complicated permitting process. And so this would hopefully simplify that and allow them to avoid that step.
Okay.
I know that we have some local people that are working with the product here, such as hempcrete and some other products, and they're working with their local, what do I want to say? Builders, but their approval process locally to be able to use it. So I know I've heard her struggles.
Yeah, and that's really kind of how this whole thing boils down. Is in the end, it's almost the permitting officer you're dealing with that really matters. Now, they're more likely to accept things. Like I said, if things are already accepted by the greater body, and that's really where we're trying to get. But yeah, be nice to your local building officials. They're your friends.
So one of the next big things I see being an issue for everybody is really going to be being able to get the material that we're going to need to be able to make the products. So
yes, so we're actually working on that as well. You have two real issues. One is actually having people to process it, and we're seeing more and more processors pop up around the country. Right now, we probably most of the herd that's used, that's being sold, that's standard size, not like small or micronized, is going into the bedding industry. And, we're trying to cultivate the building industry, but the demand isn't there for like large scale yet. So I think we're at a level where we're not that far off. The bigger issue that we're dealing with is standards. Because right now, majority of hemp herd that is created in the United States is not what we would say is building grade. In Europe and other countries and other areas like Australia and Canada, they have some more rules. And like France really has the best rules, or at least the rules that are most widely accepted with the Constrier and Shams certification. So right now with in the United States, we are working on getting ASTM testing standards to use. And then as an association, one of our projects right now is then creating a guide to try to set up, these are the tests you need to run in order to create a data sheet basically that would go with your herd coming out. And then that data sheet would help people select the proper product. The biggest issues, of course, are dust and what we call fiber clumps, which are usually long fibers that are attached to pieces of herd that clump up when they're mixed. And those can create pockets in your wall, and dust fights with the water and can make things very complicated in your mixing process. And both of these things can cause failures. So that's why they're things we need to make sure are very low and, if possible, almost non-existent.
Is there a certain size for the herd that you want to target?
This is a big discussion point. I guess the short answer is not agreed upon. France has one that's designated, but even French practitioners will have like different things they like, and a lot of it has to do with what method you're using. So spray equipment. There's like two different spray equipments in the United States right now, the Ear Easy, and then there's one that was used on the Cape Cod Hemp House, which is that machine in that picture, I think. And
this is, I don't know who this is.
Oh, that's the Ear Easy.
Hempcrete wall.
Okay, that's the Ear Easy system, but there's another system that was used in the Cape Cod Hemp House, and they have different desired inputs on the sizing.
Yeah, and then this is just tamped into the wall.
Yep. And again, so there's a couple things you're having to take into account. One is if you're using any sort of load-in equipment like spray equipment, there might be things that could mess up or damage the equipment that you need to be aware of, as well as uniformity going against the wall. You want air gaps, so you don't want it to be packed completely together. Now, if you have larger pieces, they're more likely to have more air gaps. Now, you don't want too many air gaps because you don't want to have structural instability. So there's a balance there, as with almost every property of this material. You want a good density, but you don't want it to be too high or too low, and so on.
Yeah, one thing I noticed, and I just watched this video with Sergey. Every couple of feet up, he's putting a cross member in there. So if like you leaned against that wall, it would have some support, so you wouldn't just blow out the wall.
Yes, and that's actually that's a pretty good idea. We call it anchorage. That is actually in the code submission we made because of that concern, because no one wants their wall falling out. And as we try to enter into the accepted building area, that was something that felt like it needed to be done from the building professionals that we were interacting with.
Then he's doing this cross member too, or is that just notched in, you think?
I think that's notched in. I am not a building expert, so I can't tell you.
It's gotta be. I can see how you would do that. Yep. So
My
yeah.
concern, again, not a building expert. You
That's
just always
okay.
have to keep in mind that you don't want to weaken that stud. And I'm sure they know what they're doing. They're doing it right, and they have the engineers involved. They got that right. But so yes, I'm sure they notched it in, but don't do it at home without expert opinion.
Talk to your architect, yeah.
Right.
Your engineer.
We have a project here we're working on in the state with a girl that is quite allergic to everything. And so we're kind of moving forward little baby steps at a time with that. So yeah, we're looking to do a house here, hemp, whatever we can, right? Wood from Greg, down to hemp wood, and yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of different projects popping around the country. We'd love to talk to you about this as well. There's what we're trying to do is come up with a test plan to request for people to do. This kind of originated. There's a group out in North Dakota, Grassroots Development LLC, with Justin Berg, and he's working with Matt Marino at Homeland Hemp. Homeland Hempcrete, I think, and they're building a set of tiny homes for rental on Airbnb. One made out of conventional material and one made out of hemp materials. And then they're going to do some like sensors in the walls and in the buildings to test different things. Like the thermal and the moisture and the air quality. So that we can start getting this data. Because in the end, our best argument coming into these markets and really talking to the public in general is going to be data. And the more data that we can collect to like really show people this is the truth, the better. Like I imagine something in the future where there'll be a sheet or a conversation point, at least you can talk about, that is, yes, this is the cost of it, but this is also the environmental impact of it. And then this is the health impact of it, and show these options when people are making decisions rather than just looking at cost. And I think once we start being able to develop enough data for that kind of expression of the material, I think we'll see a lot more consumers going for this.
Yeah, it's like a lot of other things in our industry. We, instead of anecdotal data, it feels good, we have some real solid science behind it. That's exciting. That's good. That's real cool.
Well, I've been looking, I saw something on either Hemp Professional or any one of the websites the other day about plastic in the building material. So I've a project this year. We got to replace our deck out back, and I was thinking about going with the plastic wood, so to speak. So do you know much about that? Is that coming on strong? Are we able to work with that yet?
So this gets into like a weird area where I don't know what I can say, but I can say this is that people are investigating that.
Okay.
Yes, that is that is a very good option. And like when we talk about hemp building materials, I know we focus a lot on hemp lime and hempcrete, but hemp wood, hemp bat insulation, hemp plastic uses, whether it be infill into a plastic or when people really get a good development process for plastic made completely out of hemp. All these are really good potentials to start, improving environmental impact, which is a big thing to me myself, but also just growing this industry.
But we need that.
Sustainability is one of the huge things here, we're all working with, and so without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
The processing is the pain point that I see for us here in Michigan. We don't have a decorticator that, I can't contract, 5,000 acres of hemp fiber and with any confidence that I have a place to take it, So are you seeing anything happening on the equipment side?
It gets complicated. The short answer is yes. Do I know of anything in Michigan? No. Do I, I know I've heard a lot of talk about states around you right now. But in the end, that there comes a balance, a business decision that needs to be made by anyone, and the investment of equipment over, the return on that investment. That is the biggest issue. So really, when we talk about the European system and how they're handling cultivation of hemp and processing of hemp, what we're using for like hemp lime is a byproduct or a co-product. It's not the primary moneymaker. The primary moneymaker is either the fiber or possibly grain. And so for us, it's kind of a complicated calculus of how we move this whole thing forward, because really for us to thrive, we need the fiber and the grain industry to thrive. And so we're trying to help promote things to move that forward. Like hempexemption.com is, some national legislation that we're supporting that's trying to make it so grain and fiber producers don't need to get tested.
Yeah.
And because that's a big issue. So when we talk about processors, if we can show them a bigger market, if we can show them money that'll come in and pay for this, that's how we'll be able to afford them. And then there's always the question of throughput, because like, for instance, what you're just talking about there, 5,000 acres isn't, you said 5,000 acres, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know my throughputs that much, but that well. But basically, it's like you can buy a piece of equipment that will just run through the material real fast and be ready for the next job, but it'll be a lot more expensive, and you only may have jobs here and there, or you have a smaller piece of equipment that may take months to get through your load, but you only have the one process, so it doesn't matter. So it becomes a complicated question. I will say I do know of a lot of people that are trying to get money for processing around the country.
Yeah. Now, what are they doing with the bast fiber over in France and such? Do they have the textiles industry? Are there other?
I know automotive is what pops into my head, and I know because that's what kind of feeds in the whole concept of using this in automotive, is they've done it in Europe. When I think of textiles, I think a lot of coming from China, because they seem to be the primary input for our textiles that are hemp based right now. So I want to say that is kind of like higher quality purposes or higher cost purposes. For us, the low hanging fruit is I want to say unwovens, but I have been corrected. I went the Industrial Hemp Summit in North Carolina was interesting because they had VF Group out there, which produces Vans and Dickies and Timberlands. And they had a panel of like 6, 8, maybe 10 people from that company there. And they're looking for higher end textiles. So you need longer fibers, better conditioned fibers. The textile industry can get kind of complicated. Even at that, I heard different growth patterns, basically. One expert was talking about how instead of growing like your 20-foot plants and wanting these like gigantic plants that, will get you a lot of fiber per acre, the actually more desirable thing in his mind was like pencil thin, 8-foot plants. And that would get him a better quality fiber. And so it gets really complex, and it's something that needs more research and more understanding.
The degumming process too, because I guess there's other processes after you decorticate that to get that fiber prepared for the textiles industry. So there's a lot more investment in that side.
Yep. And from my understanding, I mean, we have decoming processing here. The issue with people not wanting to put hemp into their current existing like cotton decoming processes and everything, part of it has to do with cross contamination, and that, you know, it's like, how will you completely clean that machine out for the next crop to come in? And, you know, an investment, like, I mean, what's the point in me allowing hemp to run through this machine if I can't sell it, or I can't make enough money off selling it to, you know, pay for the cleaning process in between different runs. I do know there are people looking at degumming in the United States right now, especially focused on hemp. It's just in the process. It's like many things. When you talk about something as major as that, is you often need a facility. You often need, you know, so when you start talking about facility and bringing in equipment, it can be years before an idea comes to production.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
coming.
really what we need to find out is we've got to understand as we move forward then the variety of what we need to grow so that we can then produce or provide what material the building industry needs. So that's one of the things we've got to figure out, you know, is it this variety, is it that variety, you know?
And
then you're right, the decortication.
Yeah, I mean, the good news for us is I think our limits are pretty wide for what can be used. It's a lot tighter, the requirements for high-end textiles and fiber.
Do you know if the so I have a machine that I can decorticate CBD plants with. We're trying to work on it on the long fiber stuff, but do you know if the CBD varieties are better or work as well for some of the material?
So this is a debate. There are certain people that will tell you, no, you can't use CBD in any of these building materials. Now, I think the majority of that comes from the complications in modern decortication, or what people standard decortication is with hemp, with CBD stocks. You know, the more uniform your diameter of your stock, the better it is for modern decortication. You have to make modifications to the equipment in between if there's a large variation. As far as performance of the end material, I've heard different things and there's different theories. A lot of it has to do with the density and capillary systems inside the material. But the real question is, how much of a difference is it? Like, okay, so it makes sense there's going to be a difference. And the theory is that the less dense will have more, like, higher porosity, and thus will have more air spacing and would probably have a higher insulative value. But we don't know if that's going to be a 50% difference or like a 5% difference. And if it's a 5% difference and there's a 20% difference cost, then maybe it makes sense to go with CBD. So there becomes some questions we need answered. Right now, from what I've seen and what I've dealt with, we've used both. And we've actually used both on projects almost side by side. And the binder made a bigger effect than whether the herd came from fiber or CBD.
Yeah, let's talk about the binders. Now, Sergey mentioned something about his herd in that video, but he said it's not a big deal because we have our binder, you know, so the binders are, so you have your lime, your water, your hemp herd, and what is a binder?
Okay, so, you know, we talk about lime, water, hemp herd, and it actually causes the point of confusion because it's more complicated. It's not really that simple. It comes into the lime bucket. So it's lime-based binder is probably more accurate.
Okay.
So when you talk about the binder, it's normally a combination of lime and some kind of pozzolan or something that reacts with water. Now, this is how I explain it, is basically there's two parts to your binder system. There's a part that reacts with water and there's a part that reacts with CO2. The part that reacts with water is going to be, it's actually caused by a chemical or an interaction between the pozzolan and the lime, makes it so it reacts with water. This is your quick set. So this will give you your strength. This is the part that'll set up like in, the first couple days, the first couple weeks. And then you have the part that reacts with CO2. The CO2 part, that's the lime. That's the more traditional lime reaction of carbonization, that it's reabsorbing carbon. Now, there's a balance there, and this has an effect on the properties. The more that you react with water, usually the more strength you'll end up with. There's also some effect on how you tamp it down or compress it, and the density you pack it in. But in generic terms, the more that reacts with water, the stronger it is, but the lower the vapor permeability. And vapor permeability is essential for the way that hempcrete interacts. So if you don't have vapor passing through your system, you don't get the hygroscopic effects, you don't get the moisture effects, you don't get a lot of the extra performance that you get from this material. So like I said, when you talk about binders, it's a little complicated. So for instance, Fifth Element is a product that is an additive. So you buy type S lime, and then you add the Fifth Element, or there's a number of other binder systems like this to that. That way you can buy the lime. Type S lime is the more expensive end of the line, but you can buy the lime and get that cost lower than if you bought a pre-mixed thing. A lot of that has to just do with markups, but and then you add in your additive. So.
So you had mentioned something, I didn't think about that, the curing time and stuff. So are we able to work with the hempcrete as efficient? I don't want to say efficiently, but the same as where we do regular concrete?
No. So curing time is Are you you're good? Okay, so
go ahead. You were answering, so go ahead.
Yeah. Curing time. So normally when they talk about curing to a point at which you can apply a finish, so you have moisture in your wall system below like 20% relative humidity, you normally talking about like 4 to 8 weeks. So you have a delay there. Certain systems like spray systems, talk about using less water, and so that number may be a little bit shorter. This is why a lot of discussion is about precast systems, because precast systems, they're dried before they hit the job site. You can just slap it up and run with it. That's bricks, that's precast walls. So that's kind of the benefit of using those materials. If that time delay isn't such a big deal, then cast in place methods can be utilized. There's kind of a benefit chart about whether you hand cast, spray cast, or precast. The benefits being like spray or hand cast is high labor, high time, low upfront costs, lower technical needs. When you talk about spray applied, you have less labor, it's faster to input in, but you have the equipment costs added in, and you still have drying time, even though it may be lower than cast in place. And then precast is, you don't have the drying time, probably the most expensive of the three at this point. So.
Yeah, we're going to have Matt on the show in a few weeks to talk about the precast stuff a little bit. So,
which Matt?
I think it's Matt.
Marino?
Hempcrete. Can't remember now. I apologize. I can't remember the name of the company.
Yeah, it's a block manufacturer.
Okay.
Yeah, precast. He talks about precast.
Yeah, because I know like Maddie Mead and boys in Hempatecture, I think, are selling blocks now. Matt Marino in North Dakota.
That's the one it is. Matt Marino.
Oh yeah, Matt Marino. Yeah, he just has that new panel system that he just is released into the market. Yeah, no, Matt's a good guy. He actually helped us with the IRC writing.
Cool.
Yeah, he's also doing that mini house thing I was talking about earlier. He's the guy working on that.
Well, let's take a Blaine.
little commercial break here, and I think we come back. Let's talk about what you're seeing. What's your big explosion that you've seen? So.
Yeah, so we're going to take a real quick break to thank our sponsor here. And Blaine, do you have any news while I cue this?
I don't have too much news right now, Dave. We'll talk a little bit about some things. Of course, right now, a lot of stuff going on in Congress. They've introduced the bill, Paragon's bill about the 1%. So that's going on. Safe Banking Act, we're trying to get that going. So again, we want all that support. Make sure you're contacting your representatives on that. Let them know that we need this support to move forward. We hear every day still, even though it's hemp and not cannabis, people are still having problems with being able to do banking. They hear hemp in the name and they get scared with things. So
yeah, that hemp open space event that was supposed to happen yesterday got canceled due to banking complications, I understand. So they reached out to me. What do you guys use? It's like we joined the Michigan Retailers Association, so that seems to work for us. But yeah, it's crazy.
And I tell you, we use Keystone Bank, and they're working well with us.
Keystone? Are they national or regional?
I know they're based in Texas, but
really?
we're in like Colorado technically, even though I'm in Nashville. So yeah, they seem very open to it.
They're not charging you a couple $100 a month for the privilege of having an account?
I know we're not, but that may be because we're a nonprofit. So
yeah, well, we're a nonprofit too. So, but yeah.
Anyways, so iHemp Midwest iHemp Expo is coming up in Lansing in May. Right now, with all the March Madness, hope all of you got your pools in, your brackets in, I should say, for your pools. So far, I'm still good. So we'll see. I guess the first game will tell here. Michigan's playing right now, so we'll see how they do. But I did pick Indiana; they're going away. But anyways, to make all that exciting, we have a March Madness going on ourselves right now. So you can get money off of the all access passes. Important, you'll want to get those, especially with the hemp building coming on. We have the list of the tentative agendas up there. Speakers are up there. We're adding to them. We're just waiting for some people to confirm back. We wanted to do.
Oh, Blaine just dropped off. I noticed he was having some low bandwidth issues. So, yeah, and then on Friday night we have the Hempies Award. So please submit your entry into the Hempies. We're looking for all different product types. That took me to the wrong spot, but yeah, we're gonna have a big celebration on the Friday night of the show. Networking event Thursday night, the dinner and Hempies Awards banquet, including a giant cola contest. So it's in May, so I don't know how many colas we're gonna get, but that's the plan, and so it's an easy process to submit your products to the Hempies Award. So I'm sure Blaine will be back momentarily. Jacob, we'll just keep pushing on. So that's the beauty of live shows.
I think that cola prize will probably go to an indoor grower.
Yeah, it's going to have to, yeah. But there are, in Michigan, we have something like 3 million acres of, no, not 3 million. There are a lot of, my number's going to be all messed up. I'm not even going to try and come up with a number, but there was, I think it was 3 million square feet. That would make more sense. Yeah, of indoor grow. There's a lot of indoor grow. And as we get our goals, there's going to be more indoor grows. So have you gotten any pushback, Jacob, when you talk about hemp building and fiber and such, when you talk to people in the industry who are might be concerned about cross contamination?
It's funny, when I first started this journey trying to really push hemp building stuff here in Tennessee. And, you know, it's like 4 years ago-ish. That's when I quit my job in automotive and was like, I'm gonna do this, and started playing with stuff in my garage and trying to like do different mixtures and, you know, try to find end products and start making bricks and tiles and all sorts of stuff like that. I went to a meeting, an HIA meeting, and that was their biggest concern. They're like, we don't even want to talk about fiber here. With cross contamination, it's going to be the end of everything, you know, and it's a reality. Now, I think the overall feeling is in the market now, and the overall gist I get, everyone's really open to fiber, and they're assuming that real CBD grows and cannabinoid grows in general will probably go indoors.
Yeah, anything for medicine that we're going to consume, it's got to be pretty well regulated and controlled. And that's what we just went through here, what we're going through here in Michigan. They just moved the processor handler regulation to the marijuana side. We're legal marijuana, and that's heavily regulated. So, you know, they're handling the regulation now.
It seems to be the logical way to go. I definitely understand, and I don't want to tell a farmer what to grow. That's definitely not my business. But that seems to be the overall feeling in the market right now.
Yeah. So you quit your job in automotive to jump into hemp, and you know that's one of the hardest things in this emerging market, to find your own sustainability path. So, how do you have hemp products or something that you sell? How do you sustain yourself in this industry? That's always the challenge.
Sustainability path over the last couple of years. I worked for a CBD cosmetics company. I was COO in Tennessee here, called Ology Essentials. Basically all natural cosmetics with CBD in them. And that was how I sustained myself for a while. And about, 6-8 months ago, basically there came a head on the USHBA and Ology. And like, I couldn't do both anymore. Both were growing, both were doing really well. And there was just not enough of me. So I made a decision, and I actually, volunteered the last 6 months of my presidency at the USHBA, primarily to focus on these building codes and making sure those got through, as well as continuing development of the organization. Now, the good news for me is now, as executive director, I actually do get a paycheck. It's not very big, but it's enough to sustain me. And that is my current sustainability plan.
Okay. Yeah, I know that's the challenge in these businesses. Blaine, you might be muted. I'm not sure. Say something, Blaine. Oh, okay, you are there. All right, yeah, that's.
Sorry, I dropped off. My computer ran out of power.
Oh.
No power.
You shouldn't have admitted that. That was a user error.
Yeah, that was it was. Yeah, well, I thought it was fully charged when I came out, but. Anyways, so Dave, I guess you got everything on the Expo, so we'll talk more about that in the end.
Yeah.
So Jacob, what's the biggest thing, unless Dave already asked us, what's the biggest thing you're seeing? I mean, are your guys' phones ringing off the hook every day with people want to know what's going on, or what's happening?
So what I am seeing currently is interest. I think there's a lot of bated breath over what happens with the IRC. I had a meeting with, the local member of both USHBA and the Tennessee AIA, the architects, a couple days ago, and we were talking about it. And a lot of this has to do with acceptance. And there's a lot when we talk about the next steps of growth in our industry. It really is moving into the real building industry and not being a niche, which we are right now. So the acceptance of architects, the acceptance of engineers, the acceptance of GCs and the knowledge in those areas. So I know this is something you're looking at, but really moving into like continuing education credits and like moving into that area really is part of the future. A lot of people, again, focusing on the other products you need from hemp, like grain and fiber and like the markets they can go into there. That's really important for us. And that's happening right now. We've gotten some attention so far with the IRC stuff. There's thoughts that it might be even greater if we get it passed in 2 weeks. But we're just kind of trying to take it all in stride.
Well, share with us how people can help out. You have the foundation. How can people donate to the USHBA? Do you have a website you want to share?
Yeah, so if you go to USHBA.org, the first thing underneath that, there's going to be a list of buttons. The first button on the left is actually a donate button to the foundation. You can also, there's a couple drop downs and a couple other buttons around. Yeah, you see donate to USHBF. So this year we've been kind of going through that's kind of carried over from last year, and honestly, not everything went through GoFundMe. We ended up raising over $60,000 last year over about 6-month period, I guess, to date. We went through and we're looking at different projects, and this will probably be released in more detail after NOCO next week, because we're having a closed door meeting with the board to review a lot of objectives that are coming up. But we're putting in line items right now, including like testing that we need to further prove attributes of hemp lime that we can put into codes, like our firewall rating, which we couldn't put in this time because we didn't have the proper E119, ASTM E119 tests for them to accept it. We had European testing, but it wasn't the same testing standards. Other tests, including like, the structural benefits. We also need to raise money now for the IBC proposal. We need to develop best practices. We need to do some carbon credit calculations, get all that set up, ASTM standards and guides for hemp herd, and then later for hempcrete composites, training courses and workforce development stuff. It kind of goes on and on. So all sorts of activity. So yes, please consider, look at USHBA.org, consider becoming a member. We'll have more details on the objectives of USHBF. In, like I said, maybe the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll have this kind of list more laid out. We're looking a lot for grant funding and things like that, as well as private donations.
Mm-hmm.
I see you're looking on your teams, you've got volunteering. What kind of volunteers are you looking for? Right now, one of our other board members is kind of heading up that process. A lot of it has to do with marketing and communications. We just need to step up our game there. And, we need help with a lot of the little things at this point. And, we're trying to set it up where, there can be some mentoring, especially for, people entering the market coming from university. They can learn from someone like me, or they can learn someone from like one of the other directors, and we can kind of help, explain what we do and how they can help us, assist us with what we do, as well as, get some hands-on training and, contribute, which I guess is the end. That's the point.
Yeah, it's going to take an army. We've got a lot of work to do yet. It's going to take years for this market to develop and mature. But it's an opportunity too, for someone to get involved, especially young people to get involved in farming and, processing and building, and, just a lot of opportunity here.
Yeah, I know.
It's not easy.
Yes, it is. It is a very complex thing. And sometimes we use very simple language to explain it to people that are just entering into what hemp is, like, sometimes our explanations on the difference between marijuana and hemp are very simplified, and it gets very complex when you look at it. When we talk about the differentiation between those two, we're talking about, the genetics of a plant.
Yeah.
So it's not like a simple yes or no. It's like not only the genetics of the plant, but then what happened when you grew it, how much sun did it get, how much water did it get. All these things can affect your end product.
Yeah.
So I got to ask this question because I know Dave gets it quite a bit too. So how many times do you get asked, will this building material get you high?
Honestly, I don't get asked that much anymore, but I think that's
Yeah.
because I'm on the offensive with it. Normally I'm explaining that before they can even say that question.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a pretty common one though, and especially if people have no idea what hemp is, you're gonna hear it. But if they understand the basics,
The hemp frisbees I manufacture. We had a major bank. I was trying to get a big boy bank account, and I figured just making plastic frisbees, right? And some golf putters. Shouldn't be a big deal. It's like, well, how much THC's in that frisbee? It's like, oh my god, here we go.
yeah, it's a nightmare. And it gets weird. And this is.
If I hold it like this, it might have some. No, never mind.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of discussion. This kind of gets into the grain discussions and even the fiber discussions. It's negligible. I mean, it exists. It like the grain people argue it's none, but residual that is left on the grain from the plant.
Yeah.
And when you talk about this plant, you're talking about if you want the optimal fiber, you harvest that plant before it flowers. And then if you want the optimal flower, you harvest that flower before it seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And so depending on what your end product is, kind of affects, how you even grow it. And if you're never actually going to get the flower, why does it matter what the THC content of the plant is? You're not going to smoke fiber. It would be not healthy.
Well, in the processing, yeah, how clean of a process.
I make the hemp seed oil, and we had that cake left over, and so we're doing what we can with Hemp Feed Coalition. They're going to be at the Expo as well. Going to do a little presentation there, so we're doing what we can to push that forward because we already know what the test results are with poultry. It's just so amazing with them. So yeah.
And when you talk about that end product, right? So you've just done a processing to try to pull out every single bit of cannabinoid you can out of that. And then this is the leftover. So if you did your job right, it should be almost nothing, right?
Yeah, there is. When I tested for now I'll clarify this too. I make the hemp seed oil, not the CBD oil. So it's hemp seed oil. Yeah. What I do.
Yeah.
But when I test it, there's no THC, there's no CBD, or there's none of that in it at all. So, yeah.
But that's where if someone doesn't have good processing of their grain, and they get a lot of biomass in there, then that could skew those numbers. So it's definitely part of the equation.
Yeah, that's why you need to have some error in there, like some lovable limit, just so if you end up with a little bit of the flour getting into your seed, it doesn't fail it.
I mean, there's a number for the amount of mouse turds can be in your peanut butter, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We don't want that in our peanut butter. So, come on, lighten up, dudes. So.
Well, Jacob, we want to thank you very much for being on the show today and being with us. Looks like we're getting close to the hour. Yeah. We know you're busy with travel. We hope you safe travels for all of your adventures. And if there's anything we can do to help, get the cause out there and let people know if we need to start, doing some things grassroots wise, let us know.
Yeah, and keep us posted on Sergey too. Any updates on?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure on that. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, and I'll see you both in May at the iHemp Michigan event there.
Yeah.
And I know we'll be talking a little bit more about that in the coming weeks, the coming days, and I appreciate it.
Well, right now, stick around because we're gonna talk about food, which was another one of my favorite topics. Blaine, where'd you find this recipe?
Well, I thought since we're down here in I'm going to call it the tropics today. This is a really good one here. Normally I have a fun hat that I put on, but unfortunately, when I started traveling today, I did not, or last week, I forgot to pack that. So, but this is a kiwi and ginger zinger protein smoothie with hemp parts. So you can see that we use a lot of great material in here. We have kiwi and ginger and parsley and creamy coconut milk, You can also use hemp milk for that as well. I like simple things, easy things. It's a 5-minute recipe to do this. And this is by the Food Network. We always like to give credit where credit's due on this. So you need 2 ripe kiwis and an inch piece of ginger peeled and sliced. You need 3/4 cup of canned light coconut milk, a 1/4 cup packed freshly leaves, a 1/4 cup of raw shelled hemp hearts, and a tablespoon of agave nectar. Put that on your little blender and blend that up, and there you go.
That's pretty easy.
Serve that with the umbrella, I think, if you want to, Dave. You can probably do that too. So.
Yeah, so if anyone has any recipes to submit, you can submit it right here on our recipes page. We'd appreciate that.
We have a lot of recipes up there that we've gotten from a lot of different sources. So if you're looking for a place to get some recipes and do something so quickly, they're available for you there on the iHempMichigan.com website for sure.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, Jacob.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Make it a
guys.
great
See y'all
day.
next week.
All right. Peace and love.